Hello, I made a video yesterday. I was very fresh with what I wanted to talk about, but I rewatched it and realized that a lot of my thoughts were not collected at all, which is fine. I am definitely an external processor. I don't know if you are, but externally processing for me just looks like saying a bunch of things and then at the very end sweeping it all up into like a collected thought. Sometimes it flies out there and it just stays mysterious. But yesterday was the first day, I think ever since I've had the boys, that I didn't work and I didn't have the boys. And so I was like, what am I gonna do with myself? So I just had a huge revelation in the morning that I'm harboring a lot of bitterness. And so I was like, I need to get outside. Like, I just need to go and get outside. And I listened to Elisabeth Elliot. For those of you who don't know who she is, she was a missionary. Her and her husband were both missionaries to a tribal people, and the tribe ended up killing her husband. She went back later, and the whole tribe came to know the Lord. And it was a very redemptive, very radical story. And so she's a very inspiring woman, and a woman just full of so much wisdom, and a woman who has known suffering, a woman who has known loss and grief, and she is just amazing. And so I was listening to her, and she actually has her granddaughter made a podcast with reruns of her messages, and this message was on waiting on God. The first video was about trust, and the second video, I don't remember what the title of it was, but the title of the series is Waiting on God. And so in the first video, she talked about trusting God with our circumstances, trusting God with our life, trusting God with everything that we're walking through, trusting God with our difficulties, with our sufferings. And then in the second video, she was talking about relinquishing control. And I have heard about relinquishing before, but it just hit me in a very new way while she was talking. In her first video, she talked about, I'm going to forget his name, but I will link it below. He wrote a book on the meaning of life, and he was a survivor from the Holocaust. He had been in a concentration camp, and he wrote about the difference between those who survived and those who didn't, and about the mindset of the prisoners during that time. And he was saying that the mindset of the prisoners who survived was not looking back at the past, not looking forward to the future, but looking at your purpose in the present. And so while food was so scarce, there is no judgment, I don't think, while he's writing. He's just writing the facts of the situation. But many people would like fight over food, and they would, if there was a piece of bread thrown out, everyone would bombard it. And then there were men who would give away their food. They would only get like a quart of really watery soup, or less than a quart, and maybe a piece of bread every day. Maybe that was it. But there were men who would walk around and give it to other people. And you would think that those would be the men that wouldn't make it. And I'm sure at times, they didn't make it, but it was that mindset of like your purpose in that moment, and still like serving others even in your time of greatest need. And it just the way that she speaks on it is so much better. So definitely watch the video that I linked down below and the message that I linked down below. But it was such a good reminder of like trusting God no matter the circumstance, and trusting that my response is my responsibility. And when we can trust God in the midst of whatever we're walking through, I'm the type of person that's like, well, this is my story and this is what I've gone through, and like, of course I can't trust because of everything that I've gone through, which there's a season for everything, right? There is a season for just grief and doubt and all those things, but at the end of the day, to trust God with it and to realize that ultimately there is no control that I have, but I can take steps in discipline and in responsibility, and even for myself. I'm not saying that we need to have a martyrdom complex of like, oh, I'm always the martyr or whatever, but we must have a response of faith and trust. In the days where I really struggle with that are in my darkest days. And again, there's grace for that, right? But I can't control anybody else. All that I'm doing by trying to control other people is losing control of myself. And all that I'm doing in trying to make someone else realize what they've done to me, or hope that someone is like, that the wrong that's been done to me is avenged. Usually all that does for me, what is that quote? It's, and I've said it before, but drinking the poison you hope will kill somebody else. So I just over the past few years, I've just slowly been dying. That's a very dramatic way of looking at it, but I've slowly been heaping up this bitterness that I hope my reactions will make other people feel what I feel and realize the wrong that they've done and things like that. But really all that it's doing is slowly eating away at me, slowly, quote unquote killing me. And I do believe that there is a response on a cellular level to bitterness and harboring that against people. So anyways, what she was talking about was just relinquishing. And the idea of relinquishing, it does mean letting go, but I think there's an even greater understanding that to relinquish is to give it to God, give it to the one who actually does have control in the end, and the one who actually can bring peace and justice and fulfillment and restoration and redemption and all of those things to that situation. So I don't really know all the ins and outs of what that means, but I do know that I'm ready to step into that. I'm ready to step into a time of relinquishing. And if there's something that you're holding on to, if there's a bitterness, if there is an unforgiveness or a hatred or a deep-rooted anger, or wishing that the past was different, wishing that the future could be in a certain way, wishing that someone was a certain way, that someone would stop doing something or start doing something or whatever, I hope you can walk with me on the journey of what it means to relinquish. And I'll make more videos in the future about this. But I have grace for yourself, have grace for others, and I'm excited to get to know what relinquishing truly means. Blessings. Thank you all for watching, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it as well.